Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Hugo Perez Trejo, and I am the membership coordinator at the Latinx Therapist Action Network. Today, we are going to have an important conversation with Dr. Michelle Joaquin. The topic of this conversation is how to talk to children about racism and bullying due to immigration status. So, Michelle Joaquin is going to introduce herself in a little bit, so I'm going to pass the microphone to her, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all for being here. A little about me is I am a cisgender Latina woman from the Dominican Republic. I use pronouns she, her. I'm a psychologist and I work with people in California and New York. I provide therapy and I also conduct psychological evaluations for immigration cases. Today, the topic is how to talk to children about racism and bullying due to immigration status. Today's plan, we will learn what is harassment and racism related to immigration status, how harassment and racism related to immigration status affects mental health, how to talk to children about bullying and racism. We'll learn what should be done if the bullying occurs and how to cope with the situation among the family and at school. And we'll learn tools and resources available for you and your family. I like this definition from stopbullying.org. And it says that bullying is an unwanted aggressive behavior among school-age children that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The reason I like this definition is because of its emphasis on the term that there is a power imbalance. So kids who bully use their power, such as physical strength, access to embarrassing information, or popularity, to control or harm others. So the power imbalance can change over time, and it can be different in different situations, even if it involves the same people. There are different types of bullying. Verbal bullying, which involves saying or writing mean things. With the verbal bullying, that includes jokes, that includes insults, inappropriate comments, teasing, threats to cause harm. There's social bullying, sometimes called relational bullying, and that involves damaging someone's reputation or relationships. So with social bullying, that's going to include purposely excluding someone, telling other children not to be friends with someone, spreading rumors about someone, or embarrassing someone in public. There's physical bullying. This is the most common type, and when we think about bullying, this is what people think about. So with physical bullying, that involves damaging someone's body or belongings. For example, hitting, kicking, pinching, spitting, pushing, grabbing, or breaking someone's things, or make even like rude hand gestures. And then there's cyberbullying, and that's when children use a digital platform to harass, to humiliate, or threaten. So like texting or social media. So these different types of bullying can occur during or after school hours. Most reported cases occur in the school building, but a significant percentage also can occur in places like the playground or the bus. And it can also occur on the way to or from school, in the child's neighborhood, or online, as I mentioned. And some of the common reasons children are bullied are because of differences in appearances, race, religion, disabilities or learning difficulties, gender expressions or sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, or just being perceived as different or not fitting in. The 2022 School Crime Supplement to the National Crime Victimization Survey indicates that nationwide, about 19.2% of students aged 12 to 18 in grades 6 through 12 reported being bullied, with approximately 15.4% of students being bullied with power imbalance, 14.5% being bullied repeatedly, 12.7% being bullied with both a power imbalance and repetition. So there's typically repetition. Bullying behaviors occur more than once or have the potential to occur more than once. This is very common as well. The 2023 Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System indicates that nationwide, 19% of students in grades 9 through 12 report being bullied on school property in the 12 months preceding the survey. So this is a true or false. Bullying is more common in schools from lower socioeconomic areas or with poor academic records. So this is actually false. Bullying can occur in any school setting. regardless of academic performance or socioeconomic status. While schools in low-income areas may face additional challenges in addressing bullying, like having fewer staff or mental health resources, the research does show that bullying is more influenced by the social dynamics, the school culture, and like the adult's response than the income level alone. So bullying is not a problem that's unique to low-income schools. It's actually a universal problem. In primary and secondary grades, there are relatively few cases of bullying. So is this true or false? So this is actually also false. Bullying absolutely occurs in primary and secondary grades. It often just looks different from more overt bullying that's seen in older children. So the younger children may engage in behaviors like exclusionary behaviors, like saying you can't play with us, or name calling or teasing, like pushing or grabbing toys. So children as young as kindergarten can even display early patterns of bullying, even if it's not labeled that yet by adults. Studies show that bullying behaviors often begin in early elementary school, and if it's not addressed, it can escalate and become more entrenched over time. The students who bully are often the unpredictable and aggressive troublemakers of the class. Is this true or false? This is also false. The students who bully are often unpredictable and aggressive troublemakers of class. A lot of people think that way, but while some students who may bully may be openly aggressive or disruptive, many are actually not. In fact, some students who bully are actually socially skilled. They can be popular. They can even be leaders by peers, by adults. They can use manipulation, exclusion, or like kind of subtle intimidation rather than overt aggression. They can appear charming or well-behaved in front of adults, which makes this behavior harder to detect. This stereotype that the troublemaker bully is like, aggressive or unpredictable, that stereotype actually prevents adults from recognizing more of the covert or relational bullying, especially if the students are high achieving or well-liked. Impact. So bullying affects both the victim and the bully and has negative consequences. So being bullied increases the risk of several things. For example, with mental health, it increases the risk of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and suicidal thoughts. Academically, poor grades, truancy, it increases the risk of dropping out of school as well. Physically, there can be more psychosomatic symptoms like more headaches, more stomach aches, and more sleep problems. And socially, it can lead to difficulties making or keeping friends. So how do we explain racism to children? Use age-appropriate and easy-to-understand language. A definition that I like is this on the slide: when a person is treated worse or excluded because of their race. This definition is simple and easy to understand. I think it's a really easy way to explain it to children. Oftentimes, I've heard a handful of well-meaning parents say, like, aren't we all just part of the human race? Like, can't we kind of keep it like that and not have these conversations? And while that has good intentions sometimes, it's not actually effective. It ignores the fact that race affects people's lives. Teaching children that we are all the same while children can actually see many differences can cause confusion. When adults don't talk explicitly about race, children are still going to learn how race works in the world through their own observations, through the nonverbal messages, and a parent can miss an important opportunity to guide the child's learning. So I do always recommend talking to children about race and racism. So true or false, children do not see color or race. This is false. Children do notice and categorize race from a very early age. Although they may not exhibit like inherent racial biases, they do perceive and process racial information. So studies indicate that infants can differentiate skin tones, and by preschool often show preferences for playmates who are similar to them in race and gender. So some studies even indicate that children can develop some racial biases and stereotypes between the ages of 3 and 5. So when should parents have a conversation about race with children? As soon as the child can speak, these conversations can begin. Avoiding the conversations about race sends the message that there's something like forbidden and even wrong about the racial differences. Ignoring race can lead children to form their own potentially harmful interpretations based on the limited information that they have. it's just best to be like open and honest with these conversations about race, because it's gonna foster like understanding and help combat biases. Even if you don't have the verbal communication, you're still sending nonverbal messages through the toys that you choose for your child and the programming choices. So talking about race from an early age can help children develop empathy, compassion, and understand and appreciate the differences among people. It's better to be proactive, teach your children that everyone's important and valuable. Don't wait for something racist to happen to talk about race. Help your children develop a sense of their identity by teaching them who they are, where they come from, and that the differences are normal and an exciting part of life. So how can parents have a conversation about race with their children? So here's some recommendations. Be open about race and encourage your child to ask questions. Listen to your child's feelings, acknowledge them, and validate their emotions. Ask questions and find out what the child knows about racism and discrimination. What have they heard about it on the news, from school, or from their friends? Give simple answers. Provide like very basic explanations. You can use resources like books or the internet. For example, I know like Sesame Street, I believe, has a video on how to like explain racism to children. And end with hope. Talk about how leaders are working for change and how things are expected to improve in the future. I always like to emphasize this. Is the situation different for families of Afro-Latinx children? Yes. Afro-Latinx children may experience a different kind of racism because Black people have experienced severe racism in the United States. Afro-Latinx people may also experience racism from Latinos themselves, even within their own families. These children may experience the discrimination that Latino people experience and also the discrimination that Black people experience. A study by Stevens et al. Revealed that immigrant youth reported greater bullying victimization than non-immigrants. They also observed that the differences were more pronounced amongst first-generation immigrants than among second-generation immigrants. I want to take this moment to mention two unfortunate cases that occurred a few months ago. So the picture on the left, Gabriela Aparicio Ortega, 13, from North Carolina. She died by suicide after extensive bullying. In a letter that Gabby left for her parents, she named the students who bullied her at Durham School of the Arts. She also described comments that reinforced like the feelings of exclusion that she was feeling. Approximately 35% of Durham Public School students are Latino. Latino students are the second most bullied group behind Black students compared to their white peers in high school, according to the latest research from Durham District. Before her death, Gabriela closely followed President Donald Trump's immigration news and its impact on families. According to her family, her last phone search before her death was related to Trump. The anti-immigrant rhetoric and policies are increasing anxiety and depression among the Latino community, according to research. And then the second picture on the right, we have Jocelyn Rojo Carranza. She's an 11-year-old girl in Texas who died by suicide after being bullied over her family's immigration status. She was told things like, I'm going to call ICE to report your family, they're going to report you. They told her that after they deport her family, she's going to be left alone. These are honestly heartbreaking stories, and they are not isolated. When bullying is tied to immigration status, a language, a culture, it attacks like a child's very sense of identity and belonging. And when the bullying goes unchecked, because maybe it's subtle or dismissed as teasing, or adults just don't know how to intervene, the impact can be devastating. So these tragedies remind us that early intervention matters. Every adult, whether you're the teacher, a parent, therapist, or a neighbor, can make a difference by noticing the signs, believing kids when they speak up, and addressing not just the behaviors, but the biases underneath it. So let's not wait until harm is irreversible to act. Our responsibility is not just to stop the bullying, but to create communities where every Latino child can feel seen, safe, and valued. How can racism and bullying related to immigration status affect someone? With the anxiety, depression, the constant fear of being bullied can lead to chronic anxiety, sadness, or depressive symptoms. Low self-esteem, children can internalize negative stereotypes, leading to feelings of shame or worthlessness about their identity, their language, their family. And traumatic symptoms, experiences of bullying can trigger trauma-like responses like the hypervigilance, the nightmares, and intrusive thoughts. It can have a social effect as well. With isolation, children may isolate themselves from their peers to avoid further bullying, leading to loneliness and difficulties forming relationships. Other social effects include identity issues. They may feel pressured to distance themselves from the culture or from their cultural identity to fit in with others, which can lead to confusion or conflict surrounding their identity. Distrust of institutions. If bullying occurs and the adults do nothing, then children may lose their trust in teachers and other authority figures. It can have academic effects as well, like decreased performance. Bullying can affect the concentration, the motivation, and academic performance of children. And then school avoidance. Some children may start skipping school or feigning illnesses to avoid a hostile environment. So what are the signs that a child is being bullied? I'll give you a second to think about that. So here are some signs that a child may be being bullied. You need to just observe the changes in the child, honestly. However, keep in mind that not all children who are being bullied are going to show the warning signs. Some signs that may indicate a bullying problem are things like unexplained injuries, lost or destroyed clothing, books, electronic devices, or jewelry, frequent headaches or stomach aches, nausea, or feigning illness, changes in eating habits such as suddenly skipping meals or binge eating, coming home hungry from school because they didn't have lunch, difficulty sleeping or frequent nightmares, poor grades, loss of interest in school tasks or not wanting to go to school, sudden loss of friends or rejection of social situations, feelings of helplessness or low self-esteem, self-destructive behaviors such as running away from home, self-harm, or talking about suicide. So why don't children ask for help? Statistics from a 2018 school crime and safety indicator show that only 20% of bullying incidents were reported. Children don't tell adults for many different reasons. Bullying can make a child feel helpless. They may want to deal with it alone or to regain maybe control, or fear that they may be seen as weak, or people might start gossiping about that. Children may fear negative reactions from the child who bullied them. Bullying can be humiliating, and they may not want adults to know what's being said about them, whether it's true or false. They may also fear that the adults will punish them for being weak or judge them. I also have fear that children who may be bullied may also feel socially isolated. They may feel that no one really cares or understands them. They may fear being rejected by their peers. Sometimes friends can sometimes help protect them from being bullied, and if children ask for support with adults, they may fear that they may lose that help. So I have an example here. So you're at home making dinner when your 11-year-old child comes in from school and usually quiet. After some gentle prompting, they tell you that a classmate called them a racial slur during recess and told them to go back to where they came from. The child says some kids laughed, while others just stayed silent. They seemed embarrassed and unsure if they want to go to school tomorrow. What would you say to your child in this moment? Here's an example of a conversation. There are many different ways to have this conversation. This is just some ideas. An adult says, "Hey, I noticed that you looked upset when I walked by. Do you want to talk about it?" Child may say, "No, it's just something someone said as a joke." Adult can say, "Okay, you don't have to tell me right away, but if someone said something hurtful or mean, I want you to know that you can always come to me. I'm here to help, not to get you in trouble." An adult can pause, take a nice deep breath, because sometimes when there are a lot of emotions, we forget to breathe. "I'm really sorry that they said that to you. That's racist and cruel, and it's not okay. You didn't do anything wrong." People sometimes say things like that when they don't understand or when they've learned hateful things from others, but it still hurts, and it's okay to feel upset. Child may say, "I just don't want anyone else to find out. I don't want it to get worse." Adult can say something like, "I understand. You want to feel safe and not have more people piling on. We'll figure this out together, and we'll take things at your pace." but I do want you to know that your culture, your story, and our family's journey are things to be proud of. That message says more about the person who said it than about you. Child may ask, what if they don't stop? Adult can say something like, we'll come up with a plan to report this so it won't happen again. You can also practice ways to respond if it happens again, or if you ever want to support a friend that it's happening to. Child may say something like, okay, maybe some hesitation. And then the parent can say something like, you want to go for a walk, withdraw a bit, we can talk more when you're ready. So as you can see, not forcing the conversation, taking breaks from the conversation if needed. Sometimes at the end, I also like to ask, especially if the conversation is a long conversation, I like to ask children at the end, like, what did you hear me say? Just to kind of like make sure that they understood what I said correctly, or what part of what I said might make you nervous, or what are you afraid that might happen? If you see that the child is very anxious, just so that you can maybe make a plan to try to prevent what's making them anxious happen. So tips to navigate the conversation: open the conversation softly, validate the child's emotions, clearly name the behavior as wrong and racist, affirm the cultural identity, self-worth, collaborate on next steps without rushing, maintain emotional safety while building empowerment. I think it's also very important to not force the conversation as well. That's why the softness is very important when you're opening the conversation. So what to do if your child is being bullied because of their immigration status? Listen to them, validate their emotions, reassure them that by talking to you, it was the right thing to do. Try to understand what happened. It may be helpful to keep a journal of the events to share with the school, document everything, and also validate and celebrate their identity and culture. You might even want to teach them to like set boundaries, like things that they might say, like, it's not okay to say that, I'm proud of who I am, stop talking like that, I'm going to tell an adult, things like that. So reassure them that the bullying is not their fault. I recommend that you try not to take any action without talking to them first, and you can tell them that too. You can say something like, do you want to talk to the school together, or do you want me to talk to the school first? Or would you prefer that we come up with another plan together? If maybe they're like, no, don't talk to the school. Find out what your child wants to happen next. Help them identify the different options that they have and possible next steps. Encourage the child to participate in activities to help build their confidence, help build their self-esteem, and help them build friendships outside of school or outside of wherever it is that the bullying is occurring. Discuss the situation with the child's teacher, the principal, or the adults responsible in the place of where the bullying is happening. Every child has the right to be able to learn and play safely. So schools must inform you of the measures that they're going to take to prevent any additional bullying amongst the students. It's important to report the bullying. There are a lot of benefits to reporting the bullying. I always highly recommend that you report the bullying because it's going to protect the child when it stops the bullying. Ideally, there's going to be accountability for the bullying because there are consequences, and it gives the bully an opportunity to change their behavior. It promotes a safer environment because it's going to improve the school's culture and encourage others to speak up. There's going to be like emotional and just psychological relief and reduction of stress if you report the bullying, because it's going to also prevent like long-term like damage and consequences, because there's going to be like a mental health protection. So yes, I always recommend reporting the bullying in writing, I would say, so it's documented. This can be an email, like you're speaking with the teacher, the principal, or director. So after you speak to someone, like just send an email, per our conversation today, this bullying occurred, have it documented so that there's no confusion about what happened. I also have you monitor the child's emotions, ask for additional resources, books that can make the child, for example, feel proud of their culture, or maybe therapy might also be helpful for the child. Avoid forcing the conversation, avoid minimizing their experiences. So avoid saying something like, not a big deal. Everyone makes fun of it, or just ignore it. Don't encourage retaliation for bullying, like violent acts. It's important that a child avoid like hitting or punching the bully or the classmate, because reacting in this negative way could actually just get your child in trouble in school. Instead, suggest us to take a step back and seek the help. Also, I have here avoid overreacting or taking immediate actions without the child's consent. So, like, don't just enter the school, confront the bully or the parent, or post information online without talking to your child first, because it can embarrass the child or can make the bullying actually worse. It can also cause them to like feel like they lost control of the situation, or make your child reluctant to tell you if that happened again. Avoid ignoring the cultural or racial aspects. So don't treat this like any other type of bullying without acknowledging the role of racism and cultural biases. Because children need to know and recognize that the hurtful comments about their background or immigration status are not only cruel, but they're actually discriminatory and wrong. So here's an exercise that you can practice on your own. Your 12-year-old daughter is on her tablet after school, chatting with classmates on a group message thread for a class project. You walk by and notice that she looks upset. When you gently ask what's wrong, she shows you a message from one of her classmates that says, "No wonder your family doesn't speak English. You probably snuck into this country." Another classmate added a laughing emoji. Your daughter tells you this isn't the first time someone has made fun of her or her family online, but she's afraid that if she says anything, it will only get worse. So again, this is a reflective exercise that you can practice on your own. Some questions that you can think about are, how would you respond to your child in this moment? What steps would you take to address the bullying? How can families support children who experience racism and bullying online? And what messages do you want your child to hear from you about their identity and their self-worth? Engage in this exercise. I do want you to remember that there's no perfect answer. It's the goal for these exercises is to like cause more reflection and shared learning. Also, to try to remember also to think of like developmentally appropriate conversations, especially with, in this example, 12-year-old girl. So I have here some books or resources because in my last webinar, people were asking about different books. So here are some books or stories that can promote inclusion, empathy. These books can model inclusive language at home and can keep the conversation going. So here I have, and the two books at the top are about like colorism. I know I'm from the Dominican Republic, and I remember lots of racist comments about ways to improve the race, and comments being made about colorism in the family. And I continue to hear that amongst other people in the community. So these two books are good for like starting those kind of conversations. And then here we have just many other books. Dreamers from Mexico. Emilia Cortez' book is about in Guatemala. Then we have Gratitude the Great Brazil, Panama, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Ghana, Nigeria, Iran, Egypt. Many different countries here on these books. And it's just the goal for these books is to show children how to like welcome neighbors and people that live far away from home. Like I know the last book, Our World is a Family, explores like why people migrate and encourages children to see the world as like a big family where everyone belongs and is being valued. And then these books are books that explicitly address racism, which are also important. Thank you all for being a part of this important webinar today. As we reviewed, talking to children about racism and bullying, especially when it relates to immigration status, isn't always easy, but it's necessary. Every time that we choose to engage, to listen, and to speak honestly, we're going to create a safer and more inclusive world for the next generation. So let's keep these conversations going, not just today, but every day in our homes, our communities, or schools, because when we show the children that they're seen, they're heard, and valued, we empower them to do the same for others. Thank you again for your time, your openness, and your commitment for change.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for such an interesting and important topic, needed topic in these times, especially right now. So hopefully this is something that goes and arrives to our communities, to people that need it. And thank you so much, you all, for watching this video. If you have any comments, conversation, questions, please let us know. I'm gonna put the links down below here. Visit our website at elton.org. Also, you could visit our Instagram page here at the Latinx Therapist Action Network. We have the Spanish version that is linked to the same account. And if you have any comment, any question, please send us a message to info@elton.org. Thank you so much for being here and see you next time. Bye-bye.